White Bear Lake Police test their culinary skills to help families in need. We'll have the details coming up in this half hour.
Recent cases of human trafficking in White Bear Lake have safety officials concerned. We'll tell you what's being done, and we'll have the latest tips on spring safety.
I'm Ron Hawkins.
And I'm Tracy Menarchek. Welcome to Lake Area Beat. Human trafficking is on the rise, and there have been recent cases in White Bear Lake.
It's a major concern for law enforcement, and community members gathered at City Hall to learn more about this crime.
For a crowd of about 140 people, a panel recently discussed the problem of sex trafficking in Minnesota. St. Paul Police Sergeant Ray Gainey says the University of Minnesota study links poverty, including the homeless, drug abusers, and runaways, to forced prostitution. He presented a 911 call placed by an 18-year-old runaway from Iowa, tricked into coming to St. Paul. She spent 7 days in captivity, forced to have sex with at least 30 men.
They told me I was supposed to make money, and they've been making me see my guys, and I'm afraid I have something.
Catherine, honey, I'm going to send you a doctor too, okay?
Okay.
When does it start, sweetie?
I don't. It started. I came here last week on Wednesday.
The average age of entry into sex trafficking is 13, and because of the traumatizing and brutalizing conditions these victims endure, their life expectancy is short. Gainey says activity historically took place on the streets, where today the encounters are happening indoors, in apartments and hotels. Officials have reached out to hotel staff to provide education on what to look for.
They said, yeah, we kind of figured something was up, but nobody actually made the phone call to the police. One of the things that the Ramsey County Attorney's Office has done is get all of the hotels in Ramsey County to come together to learn about sex trafficking, to see what it looks like.
Ramsey County Attorney John Choi says the demand is driving the problem. The Department of Public Safety conducted a study among 100 men who'd been arrested in a sting operation. They found the average John is 43, married with children, and has gainful employment. He pointed out during the panel discussion, if they posted a fake ad online, it would take less than 2 minutes for men to begin responding.
The phone would keep ringing constantly. That's the type of demand that we're talking about that exists here in our community, and really throughout the state of Minnesota. Wherever there's a population center, the way the back page is organized, as you can see, Bemidji, Brainerd, Duluth, Mankato, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, St. Cloud. It's wherever the population centers are, and there is a demand that's out there.
St. Mary of the Lake sponsored the panel discussion, hoping to raise awareness about these crimes against humanity, and hoping the discussion will help prevent them.
Captain Dale Hager now joins us to discuss the White Bear cases of sex trafficking, as well as the CERT program. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. We've got a couple of topics, and they're a little lengthy, so we're going to try to squeeze this all in. But let's first talk about sex trafficking and human trafficking. We've had some cases here in White Bear Lake. Can you maybe tell us about those cases, or one of the cases maybe?
Yeah, you know, we had, first of all, thank you for having me and talking about these important topics. But we did have a case last summer that just kind of comes to mind when we talk about this. And I guess it comes to mind because, both because of the seriousness of the topic, but also just kind of how our department handled it and our investigators and officers handled it. And I thought they just did a dynamite job, and it showed their compassion for people in this situation, these types of situations. But we had a couple of young women. They were adults, but they found themselves coerced or forcibly taken from their home near Milwaukee, and they found themselves in White Bear Lake. The only reason they knew that is they saw a sign at one point in time said White Bear Lake, and they gave a real rough description when they called in for help. They had limited use of a cell phone, and they called for help, and they had to be very cryptic as to where they were and what was happening. Well, our investigators took that information. They went to a local apartment complex, several dozen rooms in this apartment complex, but we believed we had it narrowed down to this area. And honestly, officers, investigators just went door to door and interviewed every person that would come to the door, and eventually we found them. And they were extremely appreciative that we did that. We took them out of the situation. That was a good 7 months ago. The case is still ongoing. We're still working on trying to find kind of the suspects in that case and identify some of the main players in it and see how it branches out, across state lines. So we're still working on that, but Investigator Wayne Gillen did a great job on that case, and among other people. But he went so far as to we invite him back to our police department, and all you guys were involved too. But we fed these young women and made them feel safe. I think I got them some help from Ramsey County and from folks that are equipped to place people.
So this was a situation where they're being forced into prostitution? Is that what I understand?
Right. One was being forced into prostitution. She had a very small child with her, and I think the child was being used kind of somehow to force her into that life. I think that they were on their way. I think this was a stopping point. I think they were on their way out to western North Dakota, out to the oil boom area. But this was a stopping point. That gal had a friend with her who was very pregnant, and she, by most accounts, she wasn't actively participating in prostitution here, but they were kind of using the safety of the children, the safety of the expectant mother, to kind of keep them controlled, which I think is kind of common, that people will use anything they can to try to control these girls and women and get them to do what they want.
And you touch on a couple of important things. One of them is for law enforcement is a fear that they're going to be moving them. And that happens a lot in the human trafficking. They don't stay in one place for very long, or they don't necessarily know where they're at because they're constantly being moved. And then another part of that, Ramsey County Attorney John Choi said recently about not prosecuting the women, for being involved in that, but treating them more as what they are, as victims.
Right, and I think that our department did that. I think that's a good idea. I think our department did that in this specific case, and that we definitely felt like these women were victims, and regardless of their decisions they made in their past, they're currently in a situation they don't want to be in, and nobody has the right to put you in a situation that you don't want to be in and you don't feel safe. And so we treated them like victims, like they were. Again, Investigator Gillen did some follow-up with these two women just recently, within the last month. Had a conversation with both of them on the phone. I think they were back in Milwaukee, in the Milwaukee area, and both seemed like they were doing very well. A child was born from one of the gals, and the other one was attending community college. So really hoping that we made an impact in their life.
And I know Detective Gillen has spent a lot of time making sure that they were safe at every step of the way, because that was their concern, is their safety and the unborn child's safety and the small child's safety.
Yeah, he really did. So I know that Tracy, you were there as well, and everybody worked very hard to make that a safe outcome for those young women, and we're really appreciative that we were able to step in on that.
Well, good job on that. We need to shift gears though, but we need to talk about
already.
We need to talk about CERT, C-E-R-T.
Right, Community Emergency Response Team.
Okay.
And it's a group of local community members. The program started almost 20 years ago, right around 20 years ago, and it started as a result of the idea of trying to get the local community members involved in an incident kind of grassroots level. So, for instance, a tornado passes through, something similar to the unfortunate incident in Hugo a few years ago, North Minneapolis. The theory is, who's going to respond to that the fastest and the most thoroughly initially are their own community members. And So we need to give folks that live in that community a little education on how to respond to emergencies. And probably about 10, 15 years ago, there was all kinds of money flowing out of the federal government to start CERT programs. A lot of local agencies did that. We're starting one now, and right now we're relying on donations from local folks that want to see this become a reality. And so 5 weeks ago, we started our first CERT Academy. As I said, we're in week number 5 now, and we have 3 more weeks, and they'll graduate.
So these are people that are just regular people of the community that maybe have some time or interest in particular in helping out in emergency situations. Are they strictly for the tornado scenario, or they maybe could be used for other scenarios?
Yeah, great question. You know, they are. We have 23 folks in the academy. There are 23 incredible people that are volunteering a lot of their time to become trained in this. I know that you had helped us do some of the medical training for the guys. Yeah, they're just normal people that want to give their time. We have some plans on how we're going to use these folks to better serve our community, and one of which is going to be, of course, preparing them to help us in an event of emergency, but also we're going to use them at local events like Market Fest and parades, and we're going to have them be there for that as well. Kind of get some hands-on experience with maybe how to deal with, you know, large masses of people, as well as just watching from experts like with fire and police to see how they handle an emergency incident in case, you know, they're ever put on the spot to be able to handle something like that as well.
And if I'm a citizen watching and I'm going, oh, why aren't I one of the 23 people? I missed out.
Right.
Good news.
It is good news. You missed out temporarily, but we hope to have a CERT Academy every spring. As I said, ours is, we have 3 weeks left. We graduate them all in the middle of April, but we will be having another CERT Academy next, likely end of January, early February, and we will put plenty of notification out on that, and all are welcome.
And we'd like to see as many community members to help in any sort of situation.
For sure. We really like to have a really diverse population. We want to have community members from every area in White Bear Lake. So we want to make sure all of our communities and neighborhoods are covered.
And we want to thank you for being on the show. And you were a big deal when you started. Are you still a big deal?
Yeah.
Are you a bigger deal?
I think it goes without saying. I think that we all know here that I'm a pretty big deal. So
Yeah.
thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for taking time to be here.
of course. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
All right.
All right. White Bear Lake police officers put on their chef caps for an afternoon to make dinner for families in need.
Photographer Jeff Melcock captured the highlights. Take a look. We're here in the training room and we've been putting together some food. Why are we putting together food today?
It's a little bit outside the box for a police department, but we are making food in preparation to go cook dinner at the Ronald McDonald House in Minneapolis tonight. Different groups do it every night of the week, and those groups bring in the food, they cook the food and prepare it in their kitchen. Here we're preparing it a little bit early because it was a little bit more time consuming, but we'll prepare it, serve it, and then clean up and have leftovers for the families as they come back from the hospital at night. They'll have a warm dinner to await them and also have leftovers if somebody didn't make it. So Captain Hager, Officer Gillen, you and myself have been preparing the main dish, which is Parmesan chicken. Then we had another group that took care of taking the salad, vegetable, fruit, and the side dishes, like you said. And then we had a dessert team, and not everybody from the dessert team is coming, but they prepared things and brought them in advance. And then we have the beverages so that everything's covered when we go tonight. And it's something good for us to go get out into the community, and a community other than our own, just to get some exposure to people that are in need, and just a nice event to be able to participate in.
We're going to take a short break, but first,
More people will be enjoying the outdoors on bikes. Sergeant John Vetty has some safety advice.
Hi, I'm Sergeant John Vetty. Many people wait all winter long to hop on their bikes and go for a ride, but planning ahead can protect you from serious injury. First, make sure you wear a helmet. 2 out of 3 bicycling deaths are the result of head injuries. and nearly half of children hospitalized for bike-related injuries suffer from a traumatic brain injury, affecting their ability to walk, talk, and think. Helmets can reduce the risk by up to 88%, but helmets aren't the only important equipment. You should have an active light if you're riding after dark. Use reflective tapes on bikes and helmets, and always use your gloves. They'll protect your palms in the event of a fall. Maintain your bike and check your brakes before riding, and of course, follow the rules of the road. Check out these sites if you need to brush up on bike laws. Wear your helmet, follow the rules, and enjoy your ride. I'll see you next time.
Extra DWI enforcement is now being served on Minnesota roads. Don't be what you drink.
We've hopefully seen the last of the snow and will experience some consistently warmer weather.
And with it comes the potential for severe weather. Mike Turnbull is here with some helpful information. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Well, I appreciate the invite, and hopefully we can give you some good information.
Yeah, well, spring is the time to start thinking about severe weather, obviously, and it seems like we start getting storms quicker than we think that we'll get storms.
Mm-hmm.
So can you review some basic tips on severe weather, what our audience should know?
Well, certainly be aware of what the weather seems to be in the forecast. If there is severe weather that has been forecast, perhaps turn on the TV or your radio or your electronic device and get updates. If the weather seems to be degenerating, then certainly we would want people to be watching the weather very closely. The next step essentially would be if the warning sirens went off. That's an indication that there is in fact severe weather somewhere either in the county or near the county. And at that point, our recommendation is always for people to take immediate shelter and shelter in their basements if they can, or shelter in parts of their home that are the safest.
And even though our weather's been a little on and off with cold and warm, now would be a good time to check batteries, I imagine, before the bad weather hits.
It would be, for several things. Certainly batteries for flashlights and portable radio are certainly appropriate, and of course it's always our recommendation in the fire service to check your smoke detector and make sure that they are ready. And so checking your batteries and perhaps having a few spare is a great idea.
Yeah, and I think bringing up checking the batteries and the smoke detector, we should talk about some smoke or fire safety things. But as far as weather goes, I know that the weather radios are becoming more popular, and I assume that's something that you might recommend for people too.
We certainly do, but because there are so many electronic devices out there, we certainly feel that that's perhaps kind of a parallel way that people could be warned. But if there are youngsters around, or perhaps maybe there isn't an electronic device in the home, certainly a weather radio would automatically alert you that there is severe weather in the area.
And I guess there's
phone apps.
Yeah, phone apps. I guess I didn't think of that.
So for people that are savvy in that area, there are certainly many different venues and applications that they could take and get clued in and certainly become aware that there is severe weather in the area.
So shifting gears to fire safety, what are some programs that you have for the community to try and get the word out about fire safety?
Well, for fire safety, we do a lot of education in the community at the first grade level in a program that's called Learn Not to Burn. This is a program that we initiated in the fire department well over 20 years ago. We're very proud of it because we know that every year we probably educate about another somewhere between 500 and 600 first graders in the district. And when you look at that over a 20-year span, that's a pretty big number. And we think that that's one of the reasons why we continue to see good trends for fire prevention and for fires in the community. And also for the number of people that perhaps have not been injured from fires. And in the end, the community has not experienced a fire death for almost 28 years from a structure fire, and we're very, very proud of that. And it's certainly not anything that I take responsibility for. It's the work of all the men and the women of the fire department and their dedication to fire prevention.
And even as young as preschool, because I know my preschooler, for about a month or so, maybe more, get out and stay out is all he kept telling me. So
well,
you do more than just the first graders,
we,
right?
We understand that the information is going to the first grader, but then, of course, like all moms and dads, what did you learn in school today? And so we certainly get information into the household in that way, and we know that there's an impact, and we think it's a very good, solid, positive impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose that's just a great example of how that can happen, where a parent will ask, you know, what'd you learn in school? And hopefully there's some conversation in the house of, say there is a fire or the smoke detectors are going off, where are we gonna go and what's our meeting place?
Exactly. I mean, we talk a lot about those fire safety behaviors that we're trying to teach at the first grade level, and we know that, again, they get brought back to the rest of the family, perhaps siblings, and certainly mom and dad or caregivers. And we really try and let them know if there is a fire what very important actions they should take to minimize their danger from that fire.
And we are running out of time, but I want to, because the weather has been kind of dry, the spring has been, you know, hot and cold, and we have dry conditions out. We've already had people kind of cleaning up their yards with brush. What's some information you can tell us about that?
Well, very quickly, we certainly want people to enjoy a campfire, but a campfire is not a way to get rid of yard trash or sticks in that manner. We want them to be at least 20 feet away from any sort of a structure that could potentially be started on fire, any wooden type structure. And last but not least, we certainly want people to enjoy campfires if they're done safely, but please be respectful of your neighbors. Your campfire smoke may be enjoyable to you, but if your neighbor happens to be sleeping at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night with the window open, probably not so much there. So be aware that where your smoke is going is important, and perhaps you'll have to curtail that activity.
So just lastly, where are some maybe some websites that people could look for severe weather awareness, fire safety, and maybe the regulations?
We would recommend that people go to the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, their website. It's very extensive into fire safety and also for severe weather. And they would also have a link there to the Minnesota DNR.
Okay, and then I know the city's website under the
Yes,
fire department has...
Exactly. We've certainly got information that is local and pertinent to our community here.
Great.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invite.
Our next story is a great example of never letting anything get in the way of living your dream.
Everything about Michaela Holmgren's dancing is inspirational, from her movements to her technique to her expressions. It's fitting then that Michaela trains at the Inspiration Performing Arts Center in Matamidi, since it has inspiration in its name.
This is my passion because dancing makes me happy.
Michaela has Down syndrome, and even though her parents wanted to give her every opportunity possible, they had no idea that she'd ever become an accomplished dancer.
You know, having a child with special needs, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, she was actually born quite early with a lot of medical issues, and you're looking at this little 4-pound baby going, you know, what is her future going to be like? And it's amazing to see that with all the surgeries she has had when she was a baby, to see how strong she is now is a miracle in itself.
When Michaela was about 4 years old, her parents, Sandy and Craig, thought dancing might be a good outlet for her.
So many times when you have a special needs kid, you're kind of on a separate or a different road, not necessarily a bad road, but just a different road. And this is a chance for her to be, you know, a part of an activity that includes everybody, and she can participate and hold her own with everyone else.
Michaela has trained at a number of schools, with the last couple of years being at the Inspiration Performing Arts Center in Matamidi. Owner Katie Owings talks about what makes Michaela such an amazing dancer, as well as an award-winning choreographer.
Michaela has the ability to really take a step back and listen and apply correction, and she has amazing amount of focus on the dance floor. And so through that, her technique and her capabilities have really grown, I've seen, in the last couple years.
Many kids lose interest in dance somewhere along the way, but Michaela's parents noticed that not only was she still passionate about dance, she was beginning to win awards for it.
You know, some of the comments, you know, from even the judges, from independent people, you know, a judge's favorite for the smile and the passion and things that she brings out during a dance. All of her instructors, the way the kids have embraced her, you know, all positive feedback.
The Holmgrens have enough trophies, videos, and photos to fill an entire room. They're always in the crowd at every one of Michaela's performances, including a dance that she choreographed and won an award for last year to the song Burn Bright.
It brings me to tears quite a bit, watching her do what she needs to do, and especially when she's dancing and just nailing her whole dance. And a lot of times I have to go back and watch the video again just to see what she did, because I can't see through the tears.
For Owings and the other instructors at Inspiration Performing Arts, Michaela is a model student.
She has this way of illuminating people all around her, so and lifting others and encouraging others and inspiring and empowering. And in fact, she's a mentor here at the center, so she gives back, not only, you know, through her dancing, but in other ways of service.
Michaela loves sharing her expertise with younger dancers.
I like little kids, but I always mentor the small children on Mondays. It's so cute, I love it.
Michaela keeps busy outside of dance with gymnastics, cheer squad, and an upcoming missions trip to Haiti. She also just found out that she was accepted into Bethel University and will start studies there in the fall of 2016.
I was like in tears yesterday, and for Bethel, I accepted for college, so I did that, and that made me feel happy.
I believe in you'll come running.
There's no doubt Michaela will continue to inspire no matter what stage she is on throughout her life.
Oh my gosh, that was just such a real inspirational story, wasn't it?
It was, and we want to hear about more inspiring people in our communities. We know you're out there, we just need to hear from you, so make sure to check us out on Facebook and drop us a line.
Thanks for watching this edition of Lake Area Beat. We'll see you next time.